Okay, hello, welcome to the first ever episode of No Holds Barred. That's Sal, I'm Don, and hey, together we're going to take a look every week at all things political, social, and anything else we can think of. No Holds Barred. As this is the first episode, I think we'll just be chatting about some general stuff from last week or in the week's news, but next week we'd like some input from you guys. Send us some of your own righteous rants, and we'll feature them next week and we'll have a chat about them. You can send us a video or a voice note if you don't want to be on video. I'll put all the details in the show notes below. Right, I think that's about it. We can get cracking. So, Sally.
Absolutely.
Do you want to start us off? From Spain?
Not so sunny Spain, sadly. Cozy jumper.
Not so sunny Spain.
No. We're only here for 4 days. But, it's been a nice breather from the UK because for some reason I feel so repressed at home. But anyway, it's a bit of oxygen. I just wanted to say that just to add to yourself, we want to talk all things political, but so that everybody can understand it. We're not particularly, we're going to go in depth on stuff, but in a way that anyone can understand it. You don't have to understand politics to know what we're talking about. In effect, I personally want to explain how politics affects everybody and the outcomes of political decisions and how they affect the man on the street and why everybody should care.
Yeah, definitely.
And first of all, I wanted to, in that vein, because being invisibly disabled, I carry a lot of those issues and campaign on them. But a lot of the problems disabled people have come from the fact that not everybody cares about the plight of the disabled. And we've been ridden roughshod for the best part of 20 years now, and it's just got gradually worse. And as we've seen since, with the cost of living crisis and austerity, it started to affect everybody. It's not just the poorest in society who are typically, the sick and the disabled people who aren't able to work. And if you get some of the lowest benefits in the developed world, I don't know how many people understand that. We could go and live in Slovenia and we'd probably get paid more in disability benefits. I think there's like 2 or 3 countries below us.
Really?
But they certainly don't have the cost of living that we have to put up with.
No, for sure.
And I just think if more people crack back at the government, especially with this green paper, they've already been breaking international humanitarian law for over a decade. The UN have spent special rapporteurs over every few years who keep producing these scathing reports proving that they're breaking humanitarian law. And nobody cares. I really don't understand why it doesn't make the newspapers or even the MPs who are on our side, who are working for us. The handful of them, they don't even mention it. And it's a very scary indicator of where the world's going, especially when you consider, okay, they don't care about people dying en masse in the UK, but a lot of people care about Palestine. And the UN are just absolutely toothless.
Yeah, no, totally.
So it's that's obviously another subject, but it's very worrying, certainly precedent-wise. But as we've seen with austerity, it's not just disabled people it's affecting now. The working class are living hand to mouth using food banks. Yeah. And it's creeping up through the middle classes. And I wanted to talk about a friend of mine who I have got permission to discuss. Not that I'm going to give any names out. But she did everything right in life. She was brought up fairly sort of well off in a middle class family, did her A-levels, went to university, wanted to become a teacher because she's got a love for the English language. And she basically gave her entire life to teaching. She ended up working with special needs kids for I think over 20 years. She's written books.
All right.
She's done a bit of citizen journalism. She married a teacher. She found a husband in the staff room, so that was handy.
That's always
and they had 3 kids. All their kids that they're now grown up and they went through university and they got degrees and they've all got decent jobs. The last one left university, I think, with a first in English and now can't get a job for love nor money unless
Really?
I think he can go delivery driving. That's about the best he can find because there are so few jobs out there.
Yeah.
Our unemployment numbers technically are brilliant, but that's because there's just no, jobs. But she finds herself now retired, nearly not quite a decade retired yet, and her and her husband, both on teachers' pensions, they own the house because they got a bit of family money, but they had to downsize a few years ago because they couldn't afford to live in the old family home on teachers' pensions. With inflation being the way it was, and now, and she's at a stage in life where she should be able to kick back and relax. She doesn't sleep because she's constantly worried about her family. A son who, because his employment's been tenuous, he's had a few short-term contracts, I think, but he got kicked out of his last home with his boyfriend, and I think they then found somewhere, and they only got 6 months there before the landlord turfed them out, and they're struggling now to find somewhere to live. And these are like kids of teachers, and it's just the government seems to go through a cycle. I say government, the duopoly that we seem to have for my entire lifetime. I know the Lib Dems came in for a wee while, but that didn't go so well, did it?
It did not.
That seemed, I don't know, just as performative as everything else. But they just, human beings have cycles of behaviour. It's how we function. We get into routines, and different personality have different cycles. But we're going through a thing where the rich are pulling away from the poor, and the people in the middle are getting stretched.
Definitely.
Seems to me how it is.
Yeah.
But every time the poor get pulled down, so does everybody else, or certainly the majority of people. And I mean, I was screaming before the pandemic because it was quite obvious if they're going to treat the sick and disabled like this, then they're not going to stop, because if you don't push back, they're just going to keep going until they get pushed back, because that's how they find where they can push to.
Yeah,
that's human beings. And we're going through this cycle of, nasty government, nice government, nasty government, nice government, except this government are no longer nice. So many of the things that it's not just disabled people they've attacked. They were going to change the Hillsborough law, and now they're crawling back on that. They were going to nationalise stuff, and now they're crawling back on that. And it's just, people have, I don't know where it's going to end until people stand up, and they're just not.
No, not yet.
Yeah. But you don't even have to have an accident and become disabled or ill for it to affect your life anymore. No. Why would anyone go, and the knock on, why would anybody go into the teaching profession now? You'd have to have a real love for it, because the money isn't there. And they get the holidays, but God, I wouldn't do it for all the tea in China, regardless of the holidays. It's such hard work, all the lesson, it's not just lessons, is it? There's lesson planning, and there's marking, and there's exams, and it's just, where's it going to end?
Yeah. Last September, I started a degree in teaching in Bristol.
No.
I did, but I was forced to come out of it, unfortunately, because the student loans company wouldn't give me a loan for the course. Because I studied 2 years in 1993 to 1995, before student loans was a thing, before they even existed. They classed that as me having 2 years worth of loan already, which obviously I didn't. But then they wouldn't fund the rest of my course, so I've had to drop out of my teaching degree, which I desperately wanted to do at 49 years old, which I started and I was loving it. I was really enjoying it. But
so you're one of those tiny handful of people?
Yeah, I would have been. My mum was a teacher. I just decided for a late career change in life that I had the opportunity to do it, but I don't, unfortunately, have the spare £13,000 a year to pay for it without a loan, and they won't give me one. So, so unfortunately, that I had to pull away from that.
I'm sure I saw a statistic not long ago you might be able to pull this up before it goes out, but it was something like the amount of people that graduated and then went into state school teaching. It might have been 2022. It was like 2,000.
Yeah.
In the whole country.
That was very low.
And whereas the retirement was, I can't remember what the figure was for that, but it was a lot bigger. And you're just like, well, it's again, we're heading for a brick wall.
Well, when I was turned down after 2 appeals to the student loans company, I sort of thought, well, I wrote to my MP. I didn't have a response from him. I actually wrote to Bridget Phillipson saying, you're desperate for teachers. You're desperate for male teachers specifically. They are always asking, and I had no response from anybody. I said that this is a computer says no error that is stopping me from doing a degree in teaching, which you need. I want to do it, but I can't do it because your systems are not set up to let me do it. So, but I didn't have a response from the Education Secretary or my local Labour MP. So, unfortunately, I've had to shelve that.
That's unbelievable. Well, I mean, it's totally believable, but it's just endemic.
Right. It is, isn't it?
That's horrendous.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to UWE in Bristol every day for about 3 months last year. Loved it. My lecturers were very nice. They were really sad that I had to leave, but I just can't afford the 13 grand a year, which it would take without the loan. So game over on that one. I don't understand how. And again, do you know, I went to a Labour Fringe gig a couple of years ago, and that is it Jamie Driscoll, the mayor from up north? Yeah. Sunderland or somewhere like that. Yeah, I think so. He was there, and he was all banging on about how he'd got some money from the government, and he rolled out these training courses and got a load of people employed as qualified, whatever they were. And, you know, very proud of himself and fair dues. Yeah. And I actually asked him, because nobody will answer this question for me, why is it we're so happy to invest in companies but not actual human beings with, like, I don't know, nutrition and education and stuff like that? Yeah, absolutely right. It blows my mind that they're just so short-sighted. Yeah. It feels like that's, as you said, it's endemic throughout all government. I think that is all levels. It's just endemic, and it's got to stop, and we're going to have to talk about it every single week until it does. Absolutely right. And I bet we'll get a lot of righteous rants on it all as well. Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully. But tell me about Lucy Connolly, because that's not a case I'm terribly familiar with. Well, Lucy Connolly is the lady who was married to the Tory councillor who was jailed for 31 months for tweeting about the Southport riots last summer. Yeah, right, I was thinking of Lucy Letby. Sorry. Well, there are similarities between the two situations I've found. So it's obviously the usual suspects, Alison Pearson, Toby Young, getting involved, trying to put forward the case for her innocence. You know, the ludicrous phrase of hurty words that keeps coming up constantly, and she's in jail for hurty words. I mean, that's just nonsense. Yeah, so on Friday night, I saw on Twitter that Kemi Badenoch had got involved and had reviewed, in her words, the case that legal Lucy Connolly was being unfairly treated. Yeah, absolutely. She's an engineer, isn't she, I think? She's an engineer or something. And she got involved, and I just replied to a tweet to her. Yeah, yeah, very true. But I replied to one of her posts, X's, whatever, I don't know what we call them nowadays. And it kicked off a bit of a backlash, I think, is fair to say, over Saturday. I wrote, basically, I sort of said to her that, I'm just going to find it because it's interesting, because I read the sentencing review and the judge's remarks, and I just said to Kemi Badenoch, I said, it's fairly weak to go into bat for a convicted criminal and attempting to bandwagon jump on something you don't think is serious. but it is very serious and she should back down. So that sparked fury and anger on Friday night.
From the gammons.
Twitter went crazy.
Cool.
I felt from, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was an insane amount. But then I followed it up on Saturday morning. I just wanted to clarify a few things about why I think people were misunderstanding the point about why she was in jail. So I sort of detailed a bit more. It's all on my Twitter, so you can find it if you want to. But she wasn't. The fact that it was being missed was that she was guilty of inciting racial hatred during mass civil unrest, and people seem to think that was not relevant. But they're sort of thinking that it was just her being a bit mean on Twitter.
Well, death threats have always been illegal, which is what I've been saying since the Southport riots. It's just a nonsense, and she knows she shouldn't have done it because she deleted it.
Yeah, so she according to the sentencing remarks, the tweet was seen 310,000 times, which is quite a lot. And then she made a joke on her WhatsApp group about, what did she say?
She said she was going to play the mental health card, didn't she?
She said it's coming back to bite her. I'm paraphrasing. It's coming back to bite her, and might play the mental health card, which is just unbelievably grim.
Sick.
So, yeah, it is, exactly. So then that went on to get 142,000 views on Twitter just for that.
Wow.
But then it carried on into Sunday. So then I said, I had to do a follow-up on my follow-up post, which, because people still weren't understanding what was going on, and they were still saying, oh, that's not relevant. But she was saying things like mass deportation, setting fire to migrant hotels, death of the government and politicians, and then sort of said she was a racist. Well, yeah, I mean, clearly. But people still seem to think there's a case for her to not be in jail. It's crazy. And she was given a reduction in her sentence for pleading guilty. And then
I think they're not very good at explaining themselves, these people, are they?
No, they're not. So even when you lay things out clearly, and I tried to write it in a really non-partisan way, just detail the facts, which I did, I think, and lots of people were sort of quite complimentary about how that I did that. But there's the majority of people that reply to you are they can't get it. They don't want to get it, I guess, is the real thing. And most of them were saying, well, what about Ricky Jones, the Labour councillor? What's the difference in the cases? Well, she pleaded guilty. That's the difference. He didn't. He's going to trial in August, and he will probably receive a fairly hefty sentence for what he said as well. Rightly so, I think.
Is that the throat guy?
Yes.
He's pleaded not guilty.
Correct. He pleaded not guilty and is going to trial in August, so he gets a trial. And
he did it on camera.
Yeah.
I don't get that. He did it on camera.
No.
Okay.
I know.
Whatever.
He did it on camera.
Sounds a bit. I think what they're really objecting to, and I can see the point of view, is the length of the sentence.
Mm-hmm. I think
we don't seem to have any continue. Well, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because who sets the bar and where is it? But I'd have been happy for her to get 6 months, like with good behaviour. But I think 30. Well, when you look at what pedos and sexual, rapists get, it's.
I agree. I mean,
it's not far off the same.
No. No, a lot of people were making that point, and I think that's a valid point for sure. In the judge's sentencing remarks, he said because of she and her counsel accepted the seriousness because she was inciting people to murder effectively. He was bound by the sentencing guidelines to pass down the sentence, and he gave her the minimum, plus a 25% discount for pleading guilty. So I do understand your point, and everyone else's, that it's harsh, but
bear in mind that Herr Starmer whacked the sentences up before any of them went to court.
Yeah,
He put a whole new tariff for sentencing, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so.
Which, in hindsight, was probably a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, I think, because we ain't got the fucking spaces.
Well, we don't. We definitely don't have that. Yeah, so that was basically my week.
Yeah.
My weekend really was just responding to tweets about that lady who's in jail and the guy who isn't, but probably will be come August when he goes to trial.
It went nuts.
It did go nuts.
Did you get any more followers, though?
Oh, yeah, quite a few. Yeah, a few. Do you want to talk about reform?
Yeah, be my guest. I mean, can you explain to me? Here we go. You explain to me, because I'm quite naive in many ways, lacking in knowledge. So can you tell me why anybody thinks with 4 MPs reform is a massive threat?
Because of the media coverage that they get, I think, is the answer, really. I think Nigel Farage has always been there. He's always been a media whore, let's say, put it politely, but he has. He's been there since he was in UKIP, and he just drags people along with him, doesn't he? And he drags the media along, and they like him because he's good for a soundbite and he's good at talking. You know, you got to give him credit where it's due. He can talk. He can always sit there and come up with some absolute bullshit for people. The populist playbook is good. You know, he makes lots and lots of sound bites about nothing, effectively, but they're designed, and they're designed well to appeal to his audience. And in terms of electorally a threat, I don't think they are. I don't think they've got a threat particularly. I don't know about you. Well,
I've just been running it through my head, because I know a lot of people, well, some people are wanging on about how he's going to be the next prime minister and stuff. I just thought the local elections are coming up. And you see, God, we suffer from such a lot of propaganda in this country, because I keep saying things that are like, you know, reform are going to run away with the local elections in May. Well, they haven't run away with any by-elections, have they? Or didn't they win 1 out of like 12 or something? But they've not done. I think that they won. I think, did they just win Halton?
Well, that by-election for the MPs coming up in a couple of weeks. But in terms of local councils, they've put forward a candidate in 237 local council by-elections since July, and they've picked up 12 out of that. So they're not exactly.
Exactly my
point.
They
keep saying they're a political tsunami. I
just think that they're a sideshow.
Yeah, exactly. A political tsunami is more like a drip. But
even if, let's just say on May the 1st they run away with it, let them, and then let's see the fallout from having all those reform council in the council making stupid decisions. Then come the next election, fuck knows what's going to happen. But as long as reform not a problem,
well, this is it. I think
we can concentrate on the big ones. I just don't think that they're a threat to anybody.
They're a protest party, effectively, I think, and people are angry. People don't want Labour, don't want. Yeah, they definitely are.
Putin's party.
Definitely Farage is. We know he loves a bit of Putin.
But that's the other thing. That's the other thing, right? If Keir Starmer was a true believer in democracy, where the fuck's that Russia report?
Yeah, no, it's very true. We should have had that years ago.
That would bury reform. Yeah, but it would also bury Aaron Banks and Farage.
Well,
and yet they didn't even look into it. It's
yeah, that's pretty sus. I don't know what's going on with that.
It doesn't make sense.
No, it does not.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
it's not like it's going to upset our relationship with Ukraine or anything.
Very true.
It stinks. It stinks.
Yeah. I think maybe reform might pick up a couple of councils, like you said a minute ago. I think let them have them. That's what I would say. Let them have them. The last time they ran it,
they would lay waste to the town.
The last time they ran one was as a UKIP, and I think after 7 months the council was disbanded because of a fraud scandal. So, you know,
And a surprise to nobody.
Exactly. So, let them go for it.
Amazing. At least the Tories and Labour take their sweet time.
Yeah, I know.
In fact, speaking of which, Derek Hatton's due back in court for exactly the same thing he got done for about 30 years ago, isn't he? Mm-hmm. Him and Joe Anderson.
Oh, I didn't realise Hatton was involved in that as well.
So it's not partisan fraud. Oh yeah, it's shitbaggery. It's not partisan.
Yeah, fair enough. No, it's not. All parties welcome. Yeah, so anything else you would like to mention?
Not off the top of my head. I think maybe next week I could dig a bit deeper into the green paper and talk about that a bit. Obviously, because we need to share the information because it's terrible. Can't think what's in the news at the moment. I had a look earlier, but I can't remember what I saw. If anything.
Well, the only thing I saw yesterday, I've seen lots, but yesterday I saw a really interesting article by Ben Kentish from LBC. He'd written in the Independent yesterday. It was behind a paywall, but I've got a link to it, and it's about private schools and VAT. The headline by Ben Kentish was, "We were warned about a catastrophe for private schools, so what actually happened?"
Nothing.
And it's a very well written piece, and basically, exactly, the TLDR is absolutely nothing has happened, as was predicted by a great many of us for a very long time.
Yeah.
He says 80% of councils have reported zero increase in the number of applications to state schools. Private schools do not appear to be closing in numbers any greater than they were. It was such a hoo-ha. Again, orchestrated by
lies.
The bane of my life, Alison Pearson, seems to be exactly. She's within all of this. She's the one. She's like at the center of the maelstrom, stirring up all this division that doesn't exist. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's. I wrote.
Well, her and Alexander Armstrong, bless his little heart.
Is he the GB News guy?
No, Alexander Armstrong from Armstrong and Miller, Pointless.
Pointless. Oh yeah, so poor Alexander Armstrong. Sorry, yes.
Alexander Landed Gentry Armstrong. Yeah, was terribly worried about how he was going to afford it for his 4 kids.
Yeah. Must be hard being on X million pounds a year, whatever it is. But yeah, I wrote a thing.
I'll tell you. Why are they so tight?
I know. It's I wrote a long article about the VAT thing on private schools last year, so I think maybe I'd like to talk about that a bit more in depth. Maybe next week or the week after, we'll see.
Oh yeah.
So that's something that we can definitely come back on.
Yeah, cool.
I just thought it was worth a mention from an actual journalist who continues to surprise me, actually, Ben Kentish, because he's LBC and he's LBC. Well, it's quite right-leaning for the most part.
It's a bit hit and miss for me.
He is, but he often comes out with some interesting and good stuff, and that was a really good piece he wrote in the Independent yesterday, so it's well worth having a look at that. Talk about Tommy Robinson, go on.
Yeah, the red mists descended.
Well, I just thought a bit of good news is that his appeal was quashed today. He's not allowed to be released early.
Good.
Yeah.
Little prick.
Yes. Yeah. So
he's still in solitary, is he?
Yeah, that's another thing that the same sort of type of people always say, that he's in segregation, and he's there because he's such an arsehole that nobody he has to be away from people because they'll just beat the shit out of him if he's around people. But
the batter him.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he'll cry about it.
Yeah.
Absolute dictum.
Well, I believe that his grounds for appeal that got thrown out today were on mental health grounds, that he was basically very upset.
He's another one, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You make your own bed, you lie in it, son. You need accountability and responsibility, or you're just going to stay there.
Exactly. Stop being a criminal. Stop going to jail. It's not very difficult. Yeah. Good old Tommy.
Another man, he's an actual career criminal who owes HMRC loads of money.
They're millions, I think. Yeah, he was bankrupted a couple of times, at least as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he is a career criminal. He's, well, let's not say anything too much in case he has some lawyers, but
yeah,
it was a bit of good news.
It's quite litigious.
Yes, exactly. So at least he's staying where he is for the time being, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
And
that's justice.
It is indeed. It works sometimes. It does work sometimes. Not very often, but it does. British Steel, yeah, that was the other big thing in the news.
Where are they up to, do you know? Can you tell me about it? It's business. I'm not very good with business.
They haven't nationalised the steel industry.
So because they went back to Parliament on Saturday, didn't they? So what was decided?
Yeah, they sat on Saturday and it was passed quite quickly, some sort of record sitting in Parliament apparently, that they would take control of the plant in Scunthorpe / British Steel from Jinjae, I think the company is a Chinese company. And from that point onwards, I think they've had a delivery of all the materials they needed to keep it up and running so the furnaces don't close. So the time being, good news, there's no jobs being lost, which is great. Long term, I'm still unsure.
At what cost to the taxpayer, though?
Yeah, it's unclear at the moment, and I think, as I said, long term, they don't seem to.
They haven't told us how much they're buying it for.
Well, I don't know. They haven't really bought it. They've just basically taken control of it. So it's not. They've wrested control from the Chinese company, and they've paid for the materials to be shipped in, or literally on ships today and yesterday. I'd have to look up the exact figure, but they haven't bought British Steel from the Chinese. It's still, I think, effectively a Chinese-owned operation, but under government control. But it goes alongside what we said earlier.
I don't know which way to think about that.
No, there's no long-term strategy as far as I can see.
Is that a good thing, or oh my God, what are they going to do?
They need to be more proactive and have more of a strategy to decide what's going to happen long term. But we shall see what happens with that.
Well, long term doesn't seem to ever be in the purview, does it? Which is what cracks me up every time. But I suppose you've got to do something initially, but this can't have just happened. This must have been on the horizon for some time. The steel industry's been an issue for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, 2020 was when they were
so stupid.
Yeah, I think 2020 was when the Chinese bought it for £1 in 2020. So that this all kicked off then, really.
That all sounds very reasonable.
Yeah, a bargain.
And this is why I don't understand business.
No, I'm not the biggest business guy at all, but it seems a lot of money for not a lot of return, basically.
But jobs are safe, I suppose, so that's something. And is it making virgin steel, which apparently is the thing we need to be producing? Rather than the lesser steel from overseas?
Yeah, I think so. It's just a loss-making.
That's the height of my steel knowledge.
Mine's not much better than that, to be fair. It's just what I picked up on the radio and in the news. It's a loss-making business, but
I've no idea at which point it becomes stainless.
No, I should know that. Did engineering at university, but I can't remember. It was a very long time ago. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think we'd love it for you guys to get involved. If anyone wants to get involved, we're here. DMs are open all the time on Twitter. Please don't send anything horrible. But our X account is @NoHoldsPod. I couldn't get the full name, unfortunately, because Twitter doesn't let you have a long name. Or you can also email us at NoHoldsBarredPod@proton.me. And we have got a WhatsApp, which I will put in the show notes below this. So if you'd like to send us anything via WhatsApp, you can do that as well. You can send us a voice note if you don't want to be on video. But if you want to send us a video, Try and make it about a minute. That'd be great. Rant your heart out. Anything you like. That would be great. And we'll talk about it next week.
I will be as of next week when I get home.